So where do you go after Dracula's dead? Some fairly interesting places, as it turns out. Castlevania Season 3. This is overdue. I meant to do this a while ago. It took me longer to get to... I was going to say get through. It didn't take me a long time to get through it, but it took me longer to get to the season than I would have liked, and then it took me even longer to sit down and do this. And I actually had reservations about it just because I felt like I missed the window. It's not topical anymore. I considered throwing this up in the break room, but no! I love this show. And my thoughts on it should have a place of prominence. So, let's talk about Castlevania Season 3. I had no idea what this was going to be going in, because Dracula's dead. Now, I know he can come back. I know enough about Castlevania lore to know he pretty much always comes back. But I figured they wouldn't pull the trigger on that right off, and they didn't. It gets hinted at. Oh, and by the way, spoilers, if you haven't seen it, and at this point this review is so late that if you cared, I hope you'll have seen it already by now. But it freed it up to go some interesting places, and in some ways, this is arguably bigger in scale and scope than even Season 2 was. I think Season 2 is still my favorite, but it is branching out into bigger ideas of hell, of the forces at work, because up to this point, we really just had everything pivoted around Dracula. Up to this point. Yes, there were other creatures, there were other vampires, but basically everybody was subservient to him. They answered to him, or they were subservient to him. He was the central pillar of pretty much everything supernatural going on at all. Well, he's gone. And a lot of this stuff still remains. Because we've still got Isaac. We've still got Hector. We've still got more vampires out there. And we've got forces that we don't even really know what the deal is. And it's really nice to get to dwell in that space a bit more with some characters who we already know. In terms of the returning characters, I had the most fun with Sypha. She's just great. I love how much enjoyment she's getting out of this. And she plays off really well from Trevor. Now, Trevor, part of what's interesting to me about this is that, Sypha hasn't been doing this whole hunting the demons and the creatures of the night thing for very long. So for her, it's still fun. And you can imagine that she is in a place that Trevor probably was 5 to 10 years ago. But he's done it too long. He's seen too much. And you can see some of the times when he looks at her like, you're going to end up like me, and I'm sorry. He never says it, but I had that read on it at times. So I like them, and I like that they just stumble across this little town. This little, it means nothing town. That they happen to uncover something massive that is going to open a portal to hell and potentially destroy the freaking world. Now, under normal circumstances, I would call that, boy, that's coincidental. They're saving the world again. These same people having to stumble across it. But here it feels more fitting somehow. I think just because it helps emphasize the idea of the world's not safe just because Dracula's dead. So I roll with it here a bit more than I might in other places or under other circumstances. I mentioned already Isaac and Hector. Isaac is fascinating to me. I find him to be such an interesting character. At his core, everything about him, oh man. There's just something about somebody who is human, but who thinks so little of humanity. And I love that he gets to have the more philosophical conversations and moments. I love the conversations he has with the ship captain. Those were great. I love that an episode ends on a protracted conversation that he has with a demon, a monster he created, about the life and the human that person used to be and about how they lived their life and the hell that they went into and what they are now. I love that conversation happens, and that conversation happens not about these creatures, but with one of them. Oh, that was cool. I think that's sort of the odd thing. For me, the big highlight of season 2 was the assault on the castle and all the fights and the combat and the fight with Dracula. It was the action that the entire season, the entire show up to that point had been building to. The highlights for me here were actually conversations. They were conversations that Isaac had with the captain, that he had with that creature that he made, that he has with the witch, the conversations that Trevor and Sypha have with the judge, or they have with Saint Germain, Bill Nighy, yes, the win always. Those conversations were really the highlight for me here, which is not to say the action isn't still good, but the action's already been taken up to 11, so it's hard to top. So I like that there's this shift for these sorts of things. For me, the conversations felt like they had more weight and depth to them than they did in a lot of the earlier seasons. That's not to say there was no weight behind conversations in the earlier seasons, just that they felt like they were letting us know about the characters, and this time it feels more like it's letting us know about this entire world and this entire philosophy that is driving this piece of art, or in some cases the contrasting philosophies depending on what characters we're dealing with. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. So that was good stuff. New characters, I mentioned Saint Germain, and Bill Nighy, he's always good for this. There's the judge, who's also pretty good, voiced by Jason Isaac. Fun side note, my partner Liz has a massive crush on Jason Isaacs, and she came in on me watching an episode, and you remember the judge. He's bald. He's just a guy, but she sees him and she's like, he seems kind of hot, and I'm like, he's voiced by Jason Isaacs, and she goes, that's why. She didn't even know. She just heard him talk. She didn't even recognize the voice, but her immediate thought is, he's hot. But Jason Isaacs does a good job of bringing the weight and the gravity through his voice to that character that the character needs, because he needs to be a credible authority. So that works very well. The 4 vampire sisters, they were fun. Lenore obviously gets to be the highlight, and that was well executed, even though it was blatantly obvious where it was going to go and how it was going to end. Like, from the beginning, you knew she was going to break him. And as the whole thing went on, you saw how she was going to break him, which lends a certain amount of tragedy to Hector. It does give it that sort of, oh God, dude, you're not really gonna, oh, there he goes. And it was well executed, but the fact that it was the storyline that had the clearest endpoint, I knew exactly where that was going, made it a little bit less interesting, even though it was still well executed for what it was. I really did enjoy the 2 of them. I forget the names of some of the other vampire sisters in that, but I love the 2 who are debating whether or not Carmilla has plans or schemes, and then they burst into, my sisters, we have a scheme! They were fun. I enjoy them, and I'm going to be interested to see where things go with them in a future season. I like that they didn't bring back Dracula in the story proper, but they make it clear, oh, look, there he is on the other side of a hell portal, and he's willing to come back from the look of it. So that was cool. I like that. I kind of hope that if he does come back, it's not in season 4, which has already been confirmed, thankfully. Or at least that's not the bulk of it. I still want to deal with the characters that we have and how things are going to pan out there. Also the climax with Isaac. Now, in some ways, that was a little bit weird because we have no investment in this magician who has just enslaved all these people because we haven't seen him. We don't know him. But at the same time, that confrontation was cool and creepy, and they had freaking Legion. As someone who has played and loves some Castlevania games, but has not played all of them, I have really enjoyed when I have recognized things from the games that I've played, and seeing Legion, that big, massive ball of bodies. Oh, that. Right in the little shriveled walnut I have instead of a heart. Oh, that got me right there. That was good. But, there isn't, I don't know. For a second I was about to say there isn't as much emotional weight in that confrontation as there should be, except that Isaac's carrying a lot of weight completely on his own because he's kind of battling his own path and his own intentions, trying to figure out if he's actually going to go through with what he said he wanted to do and how committed he is to it. So he is kind of pulling the emotional weight on his own. It would have been nice if there could have been more investment in who he was fighting. If there's going to be a weak element of this particular season, I think it's going to be Alucard. I think narratively, what is happening with Alucard is not uninteresting, but it is the least interesting thing going on this season, and it feels very much like a placeholder plot. The entire thing with these people who want to know how to kill vampires better coming, befriending, betraying him. It ultimately leaves him more or less back where he started, only more so. Like in a deeper funk than when we saw him, but effectively in the same place. But the fact that he has sunk deeper probably means something. He's probably going to be relevant. But this really did feel like something of, we're going to need him next season. We can't lose track of him. Here's what he's been doing. It didn't really feel like it built to much of anything. It didn't really feel like it told us all that much new about Alucard or even changed him significantly. It kind of reaffirmed certain things that maybe he was on the fence about, but it didn't seem to have massively altered him, at least not as we've seen yet. Maybe the fallout from this will be more clear in the following season, but right now, self-contained within Season 3 is just kind of a thing that happened. Maybe part of it was I just didn't fully connect with those characters either, so that the sense of betrayal didn't hit me as hard. But I mean, like, I didn't call it from the beginning, but I did call it as soon as they showed up in his bedroom. I'm like, oh, no, this is going to go badly. Which, bit of a running thing here with some of the characters that sex leads to very bad things. Although I guess Sypha and Trevor seem to have a fairly functional relationship as far as that goes. I love the aesthetic of this thing. I love the look of the monsters. I love the feel, the atmosphere, the vibe. I love how serious it takes itself, but it has characters who aren't above cracking a joke. I love its use of swearing, to be honest. Some might call it superfluous, but I feel like the sentences and the points at which characters choose to swear are like, yeah, you needed to emphasize that point with an F-bomb. That works. I feel like the choice of places to swear is a little bit more carefully selected than it usually is in these kinds of things. Overall, Castlevania Season 3, I like it. I'm here for it. Season 2 is still the best, but I want more. And I'm glad that Season 4 got confirmed. So, Castlevania Season 3. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something on down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Whole bunch of stuff to do as well. Like, subscribe, support me on Patreon. That's immensely helpful. Plus links to other things that I do or take part in or whatever that you can click on, but you also don't have to. Because at the end of the day, you're the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.